thank you, everybody, for being available in such short notice. This is an emergency meeting of the Board of Elections. It's October 21st, a little after 5 p.m. And the reason I asked for an emergency meeting yesterday, and I'll turn it over to Kevin, we had a situation where a clip that was a clip from our live streaming of the canvass apparently was put on the internet and carried over to a number of social media platforms. I was notified, others were notified, and that clip was shown.
What is that?
The clip was shown on the internet and many social media outlets, and immediately when I saw it, I contacted Kevin and Margaret, Alisoon, and Michelle, the canvass people. This incident happened yesterday. Kevin, as always, was there for us. He took over the investigation immediately, and he got to the board today at 7:30. Kevin, why don't you tell the board what you did in your investigation? You know, how you conducted it, what you did, and what are your findings for the board?
Okay, thank you, Jim. So I got there this morning. I started off by reviewing every ballot that the canvass worker worked on yesterday, and went one by one to see if there were any irregularities. There were a couple of ballots that the canvass worker worked on where it was evident that the voter had voted using something other than a dark pen or pencil. So they had used, like, for example, a light, almost blue highlighter or light pen, and or a light green pen to go ahead and fill out the ballot. Now, why is that significant? It's significant because we're at the canvassing stage where we're opening up ballots and we are making sure that the primary goal of the canvass worker is to make sure, one, that the oath has been signed, but also that the ballot can be tabulated by our scanning equipment. And our scanning equipment cannot scan something that is not really of a dark ink color or dark pencil. So it has been the practice of the board for many years that when that happens, we don't reject the ballot. It's just because the voter didn't follow instructions to use an ink pen that's dark in color, that the board canvass worker darkens what the voter has already indicated is his or her vote. And there were several of those that were in the packets that I looked at this morning. Not a ton, but a couple. I also looked at the duplication that the canvass worker had done, and it was clear to me that the canvass worker had followed the appropriate policies and protocols for making sure that the ballots themselves that needed to be duplicated. And a duplication would be different from filling in the oval in the sense that these were ballots that were actually torn. So they couldn't go through the scanner at all. So they needed to be duplicated. And that canvass worker had followed our policies and procedures in doing that. I watched the video several times that was circulating yesterday. I watched the hour and some odd video that was on Facebook as well. We divided up the approximately 8 hours of canvass time, and we assigned 4 individuals to watch 2-hour clips of the canvass and to note any irregularities that would be noted by this particular canvass worker. There were no irregularities noted by his actions at all. He seemed to raise his hand when he needed, for example, a second page as a replacement ballot. He seemed to be interacting with the individual that was 6 feet away from him. And so there didn't seem to be any issues there. I interviewed the canvas worker. The canvas worker told me that his first canvas, and he asked early on in the canvas process that when we had ballots where the voter did not use a dark pen or pencil, what should he do? And he was instructed that he should fill in the oval that with a black pen to make sure that it could be tabulated for tabulation purposes. That is advice that is, for those who have been on the board for a long period of time, that is absolutely consistent with how it has been handled in the past when we have been in person, when the board has been present for the canvas. And the only difference we have here is that we have our canvas workers 6 feet apart. And they're not side by side, but if we were sitting in training room 3 and they were side by side, they'd be doing the exact same thing, which would they'd be saying, we have a voter that didn't use a black pen, and we need to go ahead and still darken in the ovals so that the ballot can be scanned for tabulation purposes. So, having reviewed all of that and having consulted with the state board, I find no evidence whatsoever of fraud, any sort of attempt to manipulate the results. The canvas worker was following the instructions as they were given. There are lessons to be learned from this, obviously, because we have people that are 6 feet apart. We want to avoid the perception that was left by a video such as yesterday. So we will now have an observer that will notate that a ballot needed to have a oval or ovals darkened, and that observer will watch the canvas workers do that and will make a notation on the batch sheet that there needed to be one or more ballots that needed to go ahead and have that oval darkened so that the voters' votes could count. Based upon my review of the video, based upon my review of the ballots, my interview with the individual who was the subject of the video, and in consultation with the State Board of Elections, I find no improper conduct whatsoever by the canvas worker, and we are going to modify our procedures so that the perception, which, you know, individuals who are not familiar with the canvas may perceive as being improper, that perception is alleviated. Now, when you watch the video, and I'm sure all of you have, there is a situation where the individual looks to his right and he looks to his left, and there was some suggestion on the news media that was somehow suggestive of him trying to wait until no one was looking before he took any action. However, if you watch the 8 hours of video, that actually is something he does several times throughout the day, simply when he's opening the ballots without marking anything, with no pen in his hand, no highlighter in his hand, nothing in his hand. I think it's just a mannerism that he has, that he looks around the room. And so I saw no correlation that was somehow deceptive in nature, and that he was trying to go ahead and use that as an opportunity to do something that was inconsistent with the practices and the policies of the Board of Elections. So that is what my investigation has revealed. I think that the board should authorize a media release to be issued to explain the canvas process, and that this has been investigated, and there's no evidence of fraud or some attempt to interfere with the election.
Kevin, Jim.
You want a motion, Jim?
No,
do you want a motion to that effect?
No, not yet, because some board members may have some questions. I just wanted to ask two. I'll get to you, Diane. Let me just ask Kevin. Kevin, the batch of ballots that he worked on, they were reviewed as well?
I reviewed every single one of them.
On all those ballots that he worked on, you didn't see anything improper?
I saw nothing improper. I saw that there were a few where clearly they would not have gone through the scanner if they would have just been open, unfolded, and sent to the scanning team. And those ovals were filled in with a black ink pen. And that is entirely consistent with what we have told our canvas workers to do in the past. And in fact, our board members have participated in that process when the board members have been sitting canvassing ballots themselves. Again, the only difference I see is normally we have two canvas workers and they literally would be a foot apart from one another. And now we have a social distancing issue, and so we're going to have to go ahead and modify our procedures to avoid any perception that there's some sort of improper conduct that is occurring.
And Kevin, one last thing. I think we may have touched on this, you and I, yesterday. Did you have a concern, or was there a concern about the integrity of the clip that was on the public platforms?
Yeah, there was, and I don't think there is. I mean, I don't think it's a spliced clip. I think, you know, from what I can see, it is consistent with how, you know, he basically spent all day opening ballots, unfolding them, putting them in batches of 100. There are occasions where you can see where he opened a ballot, and he either needed to duplicate it, which he asked someone to get him a ballot for duplication purposes, and that duplication was done correctly. I compared the original ballot to what was the duplicated ballot. It was duplicated exactly as the original ballot was prepared by the voter, and there were a few instances where it was clear that the voter had not used a pen that would have allowed for the ballot to be tabulated, and so he had filled in the oval. Not filled them in. Filled them in is not correct. He had actually darkened the oval where the voter had already evidenced his or her intent on how he or she wanted to vote, but had simply darkened it so that the machine would be able to read it.
Kevin, why then he look at the right and left and then turn around and look at the camera? It was a setup or some joke? What? Why he did?
Well, I can tell you, having watched a lot of it and having staff review all of it, he is someone who looks around the room, and he just simply does that. I mean, he looks to his left and he looks to his right, and actually two of the individuals that were part of the team that did the review with notation said that's just something he seems to look around the room a lot. So I didn't glean from that any sort of, you know, other than perhaps bad timing. I didn't glean anything other than that seemed to be a mannerism that he had, and he did throughout the course of the day.
Diane, did you have something? Diane?
Yeah, Kevin, you mentioned a couple times how they're seated 6 feet apart because of the obvious need for anything in the COVID. But you had also said in the beginning that we have bipartisan teams and they check each other's work. Are there two people, when they duplicate ballots, looking at each other's work to make sure that they're being copied correctly?
There are, for duplication purposes. We have not necessarily had that for when we just simply darken the oval, but we will from this point forward.
Oh, good. Thank you.
And that on the smart sheet that actually goes with each batch, it will note that a witness observed the individual go ahead and darken the oval, so that we'll have that for transparency purposes more so than anything else.
Great. And these workers, the canvassers, know that they must do this in tandem
Correct. That will be part of the instruction. We're revising the forms that will be used on Friday, and it'll be explained to them that anytime an oval needs to be darkened, they need to either call over Michelle or one of the runners in the room and or have their person on the other end of the table come over and observe them actually darken the ovals.
Great, thank you.
Anybody else have any questions or comments? David, Alan, Elise?
I have my hand up. I don't know, Alan, do you still have your hand up, or are you no longer? Alan, you are muted. Because Alan was before me.
I didn't put my hand up, but no.
Oh, okay. Okay, so I have kind of a question and a comment. My question is, would I be correct in assuming, well, let me make the comment first. The comment is that what Kevin said about how this is how we've done the canvas for years has certainly been true for my entire tenure on the board, and I'm guessing that Naheed, whose tenure is longer, could say the same thing. And so I'm glad that I want to thank Jim and Margaret and Kevin for taking this seriously and for looking at the facts and for coming up with a solution to the perception problem. I do want to, my question is, I assume that there are others in the room who also were doing the same thing because it's part of the instructions for everyone. And I just wanted to get a sense as to whether that's true, because for some reason this person was singled out, to show this video.
Yes, David, you're correct. Unfortunately, this individual was singled out. There are other individuals that have the same issue arise and the same practice that follows with regard to those individuals as well. There were certainly, and I didn't mention this, but I looked at some of the other stats, and this was something that was encountered by other canvas workers.
Was he just closer to the camera, or? Okay. So basically, if this camera had been on anybody, we had the potential for the same concern.
Yes, I mean, I would venture to say that probably everyone at some point during the day comes across a ballot where someone has not used a dark pen or a dark pencil. And so there becomes a tabulation issue. And it just so happened this gentleman was right by the observation area for where the media was set up and where the public was set up.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, and thank you for all your work on this.
My pleasure.
Alan?
Right, this is Jackie. I have a quick question. Whose camera was it? Was it our camera?
No, it was a news feed.
Oh, okay.
Either I don't want to say which one it was because I wasn't given a definitive answer. There were several news outlets that were there yesterday, and I don't want to attribute it to one when I'm not absolutely certain it was
Right,
that.
but it wasn't a private person.
It was not a private person, and it was not on our feed, but we were able to use our feed today because of where this gentleman was located. We were able to, in essence, observe what he did the entire day.
Okay, thank you.
Alan has a question.
Alan?
Yeah, I have two questions. One of the questions had to do with who the news media was, but that's already covered. Second, if a voter uses a pencil, it probably won't go through the scanner.
Well, it depends, Alan. It depends upon how dark they make the ovals. If they go ahead and they really make them dark, yes. But there are certainly situations where if they lightly fill in the ovals with a pencil, then the scanner will not pick it up. And of course, the other thing is that the flip side of this that I think is important for our voters to know is that if we don't darken these ovals, and they use, for example, a light green pen or a very light green, light blue pen or pencil, and the scanner doesn't pick it up, they lose the opportunity to vote for that particular race. So that's why we have, when you watch those videos, you see the canvas workers going right down the entire ballot, making sure that every one of those races is suitable for tabulation purposes. Because if it's not suitable for tabulation purposes, then that person's ability, their vote is in jeopardy because the scanner may not pick it up in the first place.
Thank you. And the final question is, I assume that the canvasser is comfortable going forward with canvassing some more, right?
We are going to give the canvasser a day to go ahead and think about things. He's done nothing wrong, so he will be given the opportunity to continue to batch ballots as he was doing today, or he can return to canvassing. But, you know, coming in in the morning and being met by the board attorney for the Board of Canvassers, really, quite frankly, not the way you want to start your day, and I wanted to actually give him a day to go ahead and think about what he'd like to do on Friday.
I have a question about that. Can I assume that his name was not included in any of the social media that you observed?
His name was not included, and we certainly will not disclose it.
Okay, yeah, because like you said, he did nothing wrong. Okay, thank you very much.
That may be one of the reasons why, quite frankly, he may not want to go ahead and be at the canvass on Friday. Not because he did anything wrong, but we have people that wear name badges, and quite frankly, you know, obviously you could put the name badge with the name with the person. So he can make that decision. I do want to emphasize that he did nothing wrong, and he did follow our practices, which have been long-standing practices. I've been with the board since 2003, and we've been following this ever since I've been with the board in terms of making sure that we get ballots that are in a format that can be tabulated so everyone's vote counts and is counted by the scanner.
And it also sounds like you cooperated with your investigation.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Kevin, thank you from all of us. You did, as always, you did a great job, and we really appreciate all of your efforts. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Do we need a motion for a release?
Do you need the motion, or is it just, can Jim instruct you to do the release?
Well,
Yes, we need a motion.
no, I know that a media advisory's been prepared, and we've received comments. Is there any way we can show it to them, or they have
I
gotten it?
don't have it.
I don't have it.
We can go ahead, if there's a consensus to move forward with a media release, we can get it sent to everyone within the next 10 minutes after this call is over. If you would just look at it as soon as possible, we would like to go ahead and get this out by 6 o'clock.
Do you need a motion or no?
Just a consensus is fine. I think is everyone in agreement to have a media release?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Kevin, I'm going to need a little extra time beyond 6 o'clock. I have a meeting from 5:30 to 6 that I cannot multitask during.
Okay, well,
So,
as soon as you can get to it, send me an
Right.
email, please.
right, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, so we don't need a motion then. We're good to go? All right, thank you, everybody, for being
Okay.
with us. Good to see, and our next
Thank
meeting.
you, Kevin.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you. Take care.
Well handled. Thank you.
Good. All right, guys.
Motion, please.
Wait, we need a motion to adjourn? Wait,
Yes, we had a, yes.
Oh, I move to adjourn the meeting.
second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous. See you on the 27th, everybody.